Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is right around the corner, and what I wanted to do in today's video is talk about what I'm personally looking forward to in the movie, what you can expect from it, and also answer the question of, is this going to be yet another great entry into the Ghostbusters franchise, or is this going to be one of the weaker ones that people forget about in about a year's time? Let's discuss. So, after a small short delay, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is now finally releasing in theatres on March 22nd, which is next week. And I'm personally really looking forward to this film. I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. I've watched all the movies many times. I really like this franchise. And I was also a really big fan of Ghostbusters Afterlife, which was the previous movie that we got back in 2021. I thought that was a really strong revival for the series. I really enjoyed the fresh take, and I think that it worked really well, not only as like a new start for the Ghostbusters franchise, but also sort of, paying respects to the original couple of movies and, doing well as a fan service kind of big blockbuster film. But now we're in Frozen Empire, which feels like it's a kind of new start again. It kind of feels like, we're taking elements from the previous continuity of films like Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and we're also taking all the best bits from Afterlife, smushing them together, and starting a new story. And for me, based on what we've seen from all the trailers so far, I think this could be a really strong entry. So the story of Frozen Empire seems to be revolving around, like I say, the combination of the previous Ghostbusters from the original films and also our new team of Ghostbusters that we met in Afterlife, now working together. But there seems to be this new threat that's coming upon New York, which seems to be making this new ice age. There's this new ghost that's creating this new ice age, and we're having the Ghostbusters having to team up, come together once more to defeat this new threat and restore New York to its normal self. Now, for me, like looking at the story and the synopsis, yeah, it's kind of generic, but at the same time, this is also new ground for the Ghostbusters because I kind of like the idea of New York being turned into this frozen, wintry tundra, because while New York is obviously a very cold place, particularly in the winter, we've not seen the Ghostbusters in New York for a long time, not since Ghostbusters 2. And I also like the fact that, obviously, in the previous film, in Afterlife, it took place away from the city. It took place in the country. So the fact that this film is now returning to New York, which obviously the ending of the last movie suggested, and we have the new Ghostbusters teaming up with the old Ghostbusters, it kind of gives it this classic feeling that kind of makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And as mentioned, the OG Ghostbusters are returning in this movie, which is just really exciting. That means we're getting Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson all coming back in this film to play what seems to be major roles outside of the cameos that they had in Ghostbusters Afterlife. And I think what's really exciting is not only are these characters going to be like integral to the story and actually going to be a part of the team this time, but also another character who's coming back from the previous films is Annie Potts, which I'm really, really excited about because she was such a great inclusion from the original films. And I feel like having her again be a part of the team, we see her actually in the Ghostbusters getup this time, that's really exciting. Like the idea that they're all coming back is great. Obviously, really sad that we can't have Egon in this movie, of course. We can't do much about that. But I do feel like Afterlife gave us a really nice send-off for Egon. Especially because he was always my favourite Ghostbuster growing up, and still to this day he's my favourite Ghostbuster. But I think the fact they're bringing in Annie Potts to kind of be that fourth member of the original team, I love that. And again, it's nice to have the OGs actually be a big part of the movie, because that's one thing I always felt lacked from the Star Wars sequel trilogy, is the fact that we had the original characters of Luke, Han, and Leia, but they weren't really integral parts of the story, and they were always kind of separated from each other. Whereas here, all the OG Ghostbusters, they're together, they're a part of the story, interacting with both the new and old characters, and that's what we want to see. Speaking of cast members, we also have a whole bunch of new characters being introduced in this film, who I'm sure are going to be a lot of fun. We have Kamal Nanjiani, who is always a great addition to any movie. Same with Patton Oswalt, he's also going to be appearing in this film. And the one that I really am excited about is James Acaster is joining the film. Now, if you're in America, you may not necessarily know who James Acaster is, but any of my British fans, including me myself, will certainly know who he is. James Acaster is a British stand-up comedian. He's also in a lot of like British comedy panel shows. I'm personally a huge fan of him. I think he's hilarious. I really want to know the story of how he ended up in this movie, because I find it really bizarre when like these kind of British stars end up in these big Hollywood blockbusters. So I would love to know the story of how James Acaster got cast here. But I'm really excited to see what he does. I hope he's got a sizable role. I hope it's not like a small throwaway performance, because he's really funny. He could bring a lot to the film. He would also bring like a new comedy angle to the movie, because obviously the Ghostbusters movies are always quite funny, and you've got comedians like Bill Murray, Paul Rudd, Dan Aykroyd. But I think throwing in someone like James Acaster, who has such a specific niche kind of comedy to him. I feel like that's a really fun, interesting element to throw into the movie. So I'm really excited to see James Acaster in this movie, and also the other members of the film who are new as well. Talking about the director of the film, we actually have a new director taking on this, which is Gil Kenan. I hope I pronounced that name correctly. Gil Kenan was actually a co-writer on Afterlife, so he is kind of, you know, a natural kind of choice for this. Obviously, the Reitmans have seemingly taken a step back from here, including Jason Reitman, who directed the previous one. I don't know, I'm presuming he's still on a producer role in this, but Gil Kenan is taking over directorial duties, and from what I've seen from the trailers, he looks to be doing a good job. And again, I'm happy that they've gotten someone who was at least a part of Afterlife, because this is a direct sequel. Like, I personally presumed that Jason Reitman was probably going to come back to direct this, but he hasn't. So I think Gil Kenan, being the co-writer along with Jason Reitman, was the natural choice to take on the film and deliver it to us. And I feel like, based on what I've seen so far, he's doing a wonderful job, and let's just wait until the movie comes out and we can talk about it then. But again, I'm happy with the choice. It's a natural progression, and I feel he's going to do a good job here. And the last major thing to expect from Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is that this film is apparently being heavily influenced by the Real Ghostbusters animated series, which many Ghostbusters fans, particularly OG Ghostbusters fans, are huge fans of. Huge fans of. This show is really well respected, and a lot of people consider it to be the best Ghostbusters series, and I think a lot of people even consider it to be the Real Ghostbusters 3. And for me personally, I've never seen this show. Like I say, I'm a big fan of the movies, but I've never seen this show. But from what I know from Ghostbusters fans, people I've seen online, people I've spoken to, they love this show. Like, they think it's brilliant. And apparently, this movie is going to be influenced by a lot of elements from that series. So if you were a fan of the Real Ghostbusters and you were looking for the films to be a little bit more closer to that, Frozen Empire might be exactly what you're looking for and exactly what you've been hoping for from these new Ghostbusters movies. And I feel like, you know, it's just a new element and a new kind of area of the fans to kind of bring back into, because they are, if it's that influential and, you know, the movie's taking a lot from it, you need that audience to come out and see the movie. So I think it's really smart and really clever for the producers and the studio to be like, yeah, if you're a fan of the Real Ghostbusters, make sure you're seated for Frozen Empire. So with all that said, am I excited about Frozen Empire? Yeah, I'm pretty excited, to be honest. I just think it looks really great. I think it looks really fun. Again, I loved Afterlife. It was such a great kind of restart for the series, and I think Frozen Empire being a direct sequel to that, I'm loving the direction it's going in. I love the fact the old cast are being such a big part of it. I also love the new cast. I haven't really spoken about them as much, but like Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon coming back in like really big roles, like, because that was my big complaint from Afterlife, is the fact that Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon weren't actually Ghostbusters in the movie. In this one, they're in the suits, and I love that. And especially because they're actually in like these new like red suits. I'm excited to see what those are. Is that just an aesthetic choice, or is that red suit actually like a specific type of suit for the environment that they're in? Because they seem to be only be wearing those suits when New York's been frozen over, so I don't know if they're kind of like, you know, like they're extra like warm suits or something like that. I don't know. But either way, the fact that the old cast members and the new cast members are coming together to create this kind of one big unified Ghostbusters team inside of the firehouse, that's really, really exciting. So for me, yeah, I'm excited about Ghostbusters Afterlife. I think this is going to be a really fun movie, really interesting one, and hopefully, if all goes well, one of the best Ghostbusters movies we've seen yet. But are you guys excited about Ghostbusters Afterlife? Make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are you looking forward to most from this movie? What are you excited to see? And make sure you stay tuned to the channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because my review for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire will be coming out a couple of days at least after the movie releases on the 22nd of March, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And if you want to see more movie content just like this, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads from me. And I hope to see you guys again next time.